Please bow with us, please. Most gracious and Heavenly Father, we bow before you, just thanking you for how you blessed this town, how you blessed this country, and how you continue to watch over us. Guide our thoughts, guide our minds, and guide our directions that best serves you and then the city. Lord, I ask you to be with our decisions tonight, and be with our people, and be with our military as they protect us and keep us one nation that's under God. Lord, help us not to remove that from our city and remove it from our nation. Thank you for this time and the service that each one gives us to us tonight. It's in your Son's precious name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this regular called meeting of the Temple City Council. Tonight on our agenda, we'll start off with proclamations and special recognitions. And our first proclamation is for Fair Housing Month, and we have Beth Correa with us, with the Regional Planner for the Central Texas Council of Governments. Beth, tell us a little bit about that, and we'll do a proclamation presentation if you'd like.
We're celebrating fair housing because the fair housing regulations prohibit discrimination in housing based upon race, color, religion, sex, age, national origin, familial status, or disability. And the Central Texas Council of Governments thanks the City of Temple for recognizing that.
Great. And in recognition of Fair Housing Month, I offer this proclamation from the Office of the Mayor, the City of Temple. Whereas Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, as amended, prohibits discrimination in housing and declares it a national policy to provide within the constitutional limits for fair housing in the United States. Whereas the principle of fair housing is not only national law and national policy, but a fundamental human concept and entitlement for all Americans. And whereas the National Fair Housing Law during the month of April provides an opportunity for all Americans to recognize that complete success in the goal of equal housing opportunity can only be accomplished with the help and cooperation of all Americans. And now, therefore, I, William A. Jones III, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim April of 2010 as Fair Housing Month in the City of Temple, Texas, and I encourage all citizens to become aware of and support the Fair Housing Law. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, on this the 15th day of April of 2010. Beth, if you'll let me present this to you, and I appreciate you coming over tonight to receive this on behalf of Fair Housing for the areas. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks.
And next, let me invite our City of Temple arborist and the Parks and Leisure Service Department person, Val Roaming, to come forward and present this proclamation for Arbor Day. Val, welcome. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting of trees, and this day be called Arbor Day. It was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. Whereas in Texas, in 1889, the citizens in Temple conceived an Arbor Day resolution, which the Texas legislature passed into law, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. Whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by the wind and water and cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. Trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, William A. Jones III, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim May 7th of 2010 as Arbor Day in the City of Temple, Texas. And I urge every citizen to recognize that the trees are one of man's most valuable natural resources and one of Texas's greatest assets. and I further urge all citizens to share in the responsibility for their protection. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, on this, the 15th day of April, 2010. Val, thank you very much, and I appreciate all the work you do for our community in the area of trees.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Val, tell them about the ceremony.
We will be observing Arbor Day on the 7th at 10:30 in the morning in Freedom Park. The address of Freedom Park is 8456 Tarver Drive. The entire ceremony will be conducted by students from Belton Middle School. We will plant trees in Freedom Park on the southern end of the park in observance of the day. And we invite everyone to come out at 10:30 on the 7th. Thank you.
Very good, thanks. Thank you, Val. Next item on the agenda is an opportunity for public comment. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may sign up to do so prior to the meeting. Public comments will be received during this portion of the meeting, and the comments are limited to 3 minutes. I don't believe we had anyone sign up this evening for public comments. So we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, and that's the consent agenda. All items listed under this section, consent, are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member, and it will be considered separately. And so this is item 4 tonight, A through M, and we've got a request to remove item G for voting purposes. And are there any other items, council, that you wish to be removed from the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of item 4A through M, less item 4G.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda, less item 4G. There's no further discussion. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Jeter?
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lehner? Aye. Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 5 is a second reading to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change for... Oh, sorry, you're right, sorry. Thank you. Item 4G is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing a demolition contracts with Gulf States Demolition of Kinwood in the amount of $12,590 and with Intercon Environmental, Inc. of Mansfield in the amount of $5,962 for the demolition of 4 residential structures funded through the Community Development Block Grant. Mr. Beeson? No? Who's presenting today? On this?
I think it was just probably pulled for the...
For voting purposes? Okay. All right. So,
Motion to approve item 4G.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in... Excuse me, Madam Secretary? Wrong committee today.
Councilmember Jeter?
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lehner?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Abstain.
Mayor Jones?
Now, item 5. Second reading, to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from General Retail District to Planned Development General Retail District on a portion of Lot 1, Block 1, Number 1, Market Loop, located at 1521 Southwest HK Dodge and Loop. Mr. Mabry.
Thank you, sir. This presentation is an abridged version of the one given on April 1st, and it's on the consent agenda so that all 5 members of the council may vote on it for this second reading. This is just a photo of the subject property. The request for a plan development is in order to erect a billboard on the property near where the existing sign is and where the existing sign will continue to be. The HK Dodge and Loop frontage is in effect for this request, which is required for billboards in Temple. The denial, reasons for the denial that I'll go over in a moment are based on the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, and the scale of the design. This is an aerial of the subject property along the loop and Market Loop. The large building to the lower left is the old Montgomery Ward's building, just as a way to get your bearings. The first concern that staff had for this case and for the denial of it has to do with the purpose of the auto-urban character district in the comprehensive plan. I have a quote of the purpose statement for that character district on the screen right now, and part of that is that signage and design standards would significantly enhance the appearance of these areas, especially as sites redevelop over time. Staff believe that adding a billboard to the property doesn't further this purpose statement for the auto-urban commercial character district. This is a view of the future land use and character map for the property. The red area is the auto-urban commercial character district. The blue, just to the to the west, is the public and institutional future land use and character category. The second concern has to do with the zoning ordinance and the districts that billboards are allowed in. Billboards are allowed in the commercial, light industrial, and heavy industrial zoning districts, so they are recognized in the zoning ordinance as an intense use. Those three zoning districts and the uses allowed in them, staff believes is inappropriate for the area because of the existing nearby retail and the public and institutional uses nearby, being the complex of medical uses that front along the loop. And then the third staff concern for this rezoning is the scale of the billboard with the surrounding structures and signs. This is a map showing the zoning for the area that's mostly GR and office. There is a commercial designation to the rear of the property where the laundromat is located, and the plan development for that property reflects a concern for scale that was approved for the property in the 1980s, where the floor area of the laundromat is limited to a certain number of square feet. This is the development plan for the property, showing the sign is proposed to meet the 20-foot setbacks that are required for any billboard in town, and just showing the surrounding and nearby general retail zoning for the property. I believe the applicant will have a similar images to this one, but this is just showing the size of the proposed billboard, the height of it, which is 42.5 feet, and the sign next to it, along with the 20-foot separation that's proposed. 8 notices for this rezoning were mailed out to surrounding property owners. One returned a notice disagreeing with the proposed change. On its March 15th meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 8-0 for denial of the proposed rezoning in accordance with the staff recommendation. A reminder that 4 affirmative votes are required for this approval, and that reason for the Planning and Zoning Commission staff recommendation of denial for this zoning case is that the request doesn't comply with the urban design and future land use chapter of the comprehensive plan. The billboard isn't a permitted use in the GR zoning district, and the billboard is too intensive a use for the subject property and is out of scale with surrounding structures. At this point, I could answer any questions that the council might have on this case.
Is the reason that it doesn't meet the, or doesn't comply with the urban design and future land use chapter of the comprehensive plan, is it because of the zoning of that one particular piece of land, or what is that?
Well, so
area that doesn't meet?
What I have on the screen is the purpose statement for that future land use and character district of auto, urban, and commercial. And you can see from the quote that there's an intent to have standards that would significantly enhance the appearance of these areas, especially as sites redevelop over time. And there's a concern from staff that the addition of a billboard could, down the line, serve as a hindrance to redeveloping potentially the old Montgomery Ward's building, or just the shopping center as a whole, since a billboard can be a pretty lasting structure on a property.
So that doesn't have anything to do with a prohibition along the loop in its entirety? at all. It's really just that particular location relative to that retail.
Yes, sir. The spacing standards in the zoning ordinance are met by this proposed location. And any other zoning standards that are adopted in the zoning ordinance for billboards are met by this proposal.
I asked the question that way because in discussing with the Planning and Zoning Committee member, they indicated to me that they thought the presentation that was made to them by staff was actually stating that we now have a prohibition for putting billboards on the loop.
Oh, no, that was definitely not the intent of the Planning and Zoning Commission presentation.
Okay, that one particular board member, Planning and Zoning Commission board member, took that away from that. And so was pretty vocal to me about this, so.
One of the other statements was that we had problem with the size. Actually, it's smaller than those between there and Interstate 35.
There is an existing billboard across from the loop that is larger than the one proposed, and I think there will be an image reflecting that the applicant will probably show, but that is accurate that there are larger, there's at least one and probably more larger billboards along the loop.
The other thing, the development of that red area that's behind Montgomery Wards in that building, there's really not an opportunity to develop that side of the road going south because it's the back of that entire building. So there's really, that's just service area that feeds the back of that entire shopping center. So really, I don't know that would hinder development of that part of the property because it's actually even going further to the south because it's just actually the back of the buildings. You really couldn't develop that because it's service area. So, and across the streets already developed in a eye clinic, I believe. So,
Yes, sir.
okay.
And the notices went out, one to the property owner, and I appreciate your concern overall about hindering the possible redevelopment, but the actual property owner evidently has no concern because they didn't bother to reply. They could have disagreed if they thought it was going to hinder their marketability or their redevelopment of that center. So I think that's somewhat subjective in terms of could it or couldn't it hurt it if they didn't even respond. That kind of communicates to me that they're not real concerned about it.
The one that's on the property?
Yeah, you have the one denial, but the one behind it, we're talking about the area that it could hinder the redevelopment of it. They didn't even reply, and generally that's agreement by default.
Yeah, the Baytown place or the Montgomery Wards place?
Montgomery Wards, that whole strip center right there, which is what y'all are saying y'all are concerned about, correct?
That's correct. Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
And is it true that the adjacent commercial property, if the applicant wanted to, he could, and he had agreement with the property owners, he could just go to that commercial property and put his sign there if he wanted to?
Are you referring sort of the one to the rear?
Yes.
Where the cleaner is? Well, it's a planned development, so it wouldn't be by right either. It would be an amendment to that approved planned development. So it would be a Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council approval as well.
Okay.
Is it also true this sign will also always have Bloomin' Festival on it?
I don't think so.
Thought I'd ask. Be a no-brainer then.
Other question? This item is not published for a public hearing, but we have the applicant here, Mr. Nagy is representing Lamar. Any comments you'd like to make or anything that you'd like to present before council considers this matter?
Hi, my name is Matt Negley. Our office is located at 5110 North General Bruce in Temple. I appreciate all the questions and the comments, and I would just like to clarify that our sign is smaller than most of the billboards in the area, in that it is a 10.5 by 36, as stated by staff, and all of the other billboards from 31st Street all the way to I-35 are 14 by 48 billboards, which is 672 square feet. What we are proposing is 378 square feet. And so I wanted to point that. Last meeting, there were a lot of things going back and forth, and I think we accomplished quite a bit in that meeting in designating or deciding that the proposed location is a viable spot for a billboard, and the size was the remaining factor of it. And it was comforting having the staff agree or that they were willing to look at a smaller size billboard. But it was also, I just want to clarify that the other ones are 14 by 48, and this one is 43% of the size. It's considerably smaller. And so I just don't want everyone to think that it's the big, huge ones that mirror the rest of the loop from there to the interstate. It is quite a bit smaller. And in considering our smaller size, this is one of our smaller sizes that may have been one of the sizes referred to in the last meeting, and then we have one that's even smaller than that. It's 12 by 25, and that's 300 square feet. But across a large area or artery like that, whether it's going to turn out to be 8 lanes or 10, I know there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, however many lanes, we don't really put them there. We put them more on smaller arterial areas than the loop or I-35. Do y'all have any questions for
Does
me?
anyone have a question for Mr. Nager?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Council, other comments or questions? Otherwise, entertain a motion for this item.
Yes, I would comment that certainly the planning and zoning vote, as well as the staff recommendation, are pretty powerful messages. And I too have spoken with two of the planning and zoning members, and have reviewed the minutes, and I think have been to the scene. And as from 2 weeks ago, I appreciate their concern and don't know all that was in their mind, but I'm struggling with finding something wrong with having the sign there. It appears to be a logical sign and a logical size, and again, while I appreciate the work planning and zoning does, I think I would recommend that we approve this, and I would offer a motion that we approve item 2010-4350.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance authorizing the zoning change from general retail district to planned development general retail district on the proposed property. Is there further discussion? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Jeter?
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Luna?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 6 is a first reading, and it's not posted for a public hearing, but we will conduct a public hearing on this item. It is to consider adopting an ordinance renaming a portion of Hilliard Road to Lightner Lane. Mr. Dolan.
Mayor and City Council, the aerial photography that you see on the screens next to you with the area highlighted in red, again, is what staff is reviewing with the different utility companies, and also contacted the property owner's business to deliver a letter stating that they would like to try to rename this road to Lightner Lane. The Lightners were the property owners within this area, and due to the reconstruction of the renaming of the Research Parkway, this road would need to be changed, and as you can see with the slide, that it's very likely that as the park area develops to the south, that portion of the road would be abandoned. And so this would provide a road name to be able to keep the same addresses, and provided that the road name does change, the street addresses remain the same. And while this is not a public hearing this evening, it's just a portion of it is to clean up this portion of the roadway near Research and the property owners lived in this area, and it would conform to the resolution that the council had approved back in 2002 about the renaming of the roads. I'd be glad to answer any questions for you, and there may be some people in the audience this evening too that may want to ask you some questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Questions by council?
Would it still be Hilliard Lane from, or Hilliard Road from the intersection going south to Research?
For the current time, yes. But there's no properties that are down there, and as you can remember, there's a portion, and Mr. Sikora may be able to speak to it more clearly, there's some parkland that's planned in that area, and that road may be...
West side of that.
Yes, that's correct. And if you... Potentially on the east side as well.
Yeah.
And so, both sides.
Wouldn't it be confusing, though? I mean,
There's no property owner in that area that's south of it,
and
except for the city.
there's a couple of residences between that intersection and Airport Road. Isn't there one or two?
There's two properties there, two addresses, and the Lightner Lane would be reflective of the property owners in that area.
And it wouldn't change?
The addresses remain the same.
As Hilliard?
No, the numerical addresses remain the same.
And it'd be Hilliard Road instead of Lightner? I mean, be Lightner.
The reverse, it would be Lightner, yes, sir.
I guess I agree with Councilman Snyder. I think it's rather confusing, and I guess I would ask the question, the way your ordinance is crafted, if we wanted to, could we rename the whole thing Lightner Lane? Because it dead ends, the existing Hilliard Lane dead ends, is that correct?
Correct. But I would let Mr. Sikora or Mr. Blackburn discuss the idea, because I know there's going to be park property in there, so I don't know if that road would remain there for the park access and parking.
I see.
All right? That's the difference.
Who's requesting this?
It was coming basically from 911, which was requesting the change for looking at a road name in there because of the change of the Research Parkway and what will happen to Hilliard Road on that side of Research Parkway.
But so 911 requested it to be Lightner instead of Hilliard?
They asked for a different name than Hilliard, and those were the property owners within the area, and that's what staff is recommending to be reflective of the property owners that live there. It's more of a cleanup from our perspective, but it also coordinates with the 911 addressing policy.
Well, as I indicated, normally on a first reading of an ordinance for a name change, we would publish it as a public hearing, but we just missed doing that, but tonight we're going to go ahead and have the public hearing anyways. At the next council meeting, it will be published for a public hearing, and thus we'll have a public hearing at that time too. So I'm going to declare a public hearing open at this time. Anyone wishing to speak before the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading.
Motion to approve. I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve and a second to consider adopting the ordinance renaming a portion of Hilliard Road to Lightner Lane. There's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Jeter?
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lehman?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 7 is a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance establishing the prima facie speed limit on the US 190 Loop 363 frontage road within the city limits. Mr. Newman.
Good morning, Council. This item for your consideration is to change the speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 45 miles an hour on the westbound frontage road of Loop 363 between South 5th Street and South 57th Street. TxDOT has conducted a transportation or traffic study to determine that would be the appropriate speed limit now that frontage road has been reconstructed. The City Council is required to make approval of the speed limit changes within the city limits. City staff concur with the findings of TxDOT recommending the change of the speed limit sign, and this item does require a public hearing, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Council, questions for Mr. Newman on this side?
Who puts up the signs? We do, or the state?
The state does.
Okay.
But the city council is required to make the approval within the city limits.
Other questions? If not, this item requires public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to comment on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on item 7.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the ordinance establishing the speed limits on US 190 Loop 363 frontage roads within the city limits. There's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Jeter.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lina.
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Item 8 is to consider adopting a resolution directing the city attorney to develop a policy to require quarterly disclosure by city council members of gross income earned by them, directly or indirectly, as a contractor, subcontractor, or material supplier from contracts entered into by the city or from projects that are funded in whole or in part from city funds or funds administered by the city. Ms. Luna, you've got this item to us.
Yes.
Anything you would like to present on this?
I just want this to be looked at and a recommendation brought back to the council about some type of regular report on income that council members earn from city contracts. This report could certainly contain information showing what amount of money they saved the city by being the low bidder. And there's just a lot of perception out there that is something that's not right with our policy. I just want it looked at, and especially to avoid the appearance of unduly benefiting from our positions on the city council.
Okay. Do you want to put that in form of a motion to adopt this, or you brought this to us?
Motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adoption of the resolution directing city attorney to develop the policy and bring that back to us for consideration. Is there any further discussion or comment?
When is the time frame of this? When are we instructing him to bring this back? There is no date in this.
Any time frame you think it'll take to put this together?
Tomorrow, the next day, can you have it done?
Meet your expectation.
We've got 3 weeks, I think, between now and the next council meeting.
That's certainly
Is it reasonable to bring that back for that point? If it looks like we need to, we can discuss it at the workshop session prior to that meeting, and then bring it back for the May 1st meeting. May 7th meeting. And 6th?
6th to May 6th. That is true.
Can I offer an amendment, or do we vote on this and then offer? How does that work?
You can actually offer an amendment.
Can I offer an amendment that it would also, in the first report would also include disclosures of each of, if I'm on it or whoever, but from the time we came on the council to the point of the first thing that would go backwards, so it would cover the entire period. So you'd have this period of time you're on the council, then moving forward, it would be quarterly.
When you say from the period of time you came on the council, so you want some of us to go back 8 years?
Yes.
Okay. Make that motion. Is that a motion?
I'm making that motion to amend that motion.
To amend the motion.
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? There's no second. The amendment dies. The motion for an amendment dies due to lack of a second. And so the motion to adopt this resolution, if there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Jeter.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lina.
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 9 is board appointments. Consider adopting a resolution appointing members to the following city boards and commissions. We've got 2 openings on 2 different boards. We've got item A is 1 member to the Temple Public Safety Advisory Board to fill an unexpired term through September 1st of 2012, and then 1 member for the Community Services Advisory Board to fill an unexpired term through September 1st of 2011. Are there any preferences from the list that we have?
Mr. Mayor, I would nominate John Mayo for the Public Safety Advisory Board.
Any preference for the Community Services Advisory Board?
I would nominate Dee Blackwell.
Okay. Dee Blackwell for Community Services Advisory Board. No one else has any other recommendations? Entertain a motion together or separate, as you wish, for the appointment of those members. John Mayo to the term for the Temple Public Safety Advisory Board that will expire September 1st of 2012, and Ms. Dee Blackwell for the Community Services Advisory Board for the term that will expire September 1st of 2011. Entertain a motion on those items.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 9A and D as recommended. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Judy?
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Luna?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our agenda for this evening. Thank you very much for your attendance at this meeting. We are adjourned.